When I was 14 years old, my young women group went on a grueling hike. Our destination was the top of a high plateau that had a spectacular view of the surrounding mountain range. The ascent was steep and difficult, and after several hours of climbing, one of our leaders had to turn back. Her body simply couldn't take her any further. Sobbing, she was escorted slowly back down the mountain by one of the priesthood leaders who had accompanied us. Several hours later, and after completing one of the hardest physical challenges of my young life, I found myself standing on top of a mountain. The view from the top was spectacular. It literally took my breath away. Standing up there, my perception of things was so different. Things that had seemed big and important now seemed tiny and insignificant in the face of so much grandeur and majesty. The air was different, thinner and colder, and full of reverence. As my head brushed the tops of clouds, I understood why in the scriptures the temple was referred to as the mountain of the Lord. The mountain was as near as you could get to piercing the veil, parting the clouds, and seeing God. When we came down off the mountain, we were greeted by our leader who had waited for us to return. As we eagerly told her about our hike and about the incredible view from the top, she smiled, hugged us, and told us she was proud of us. Only years later, as a grown woman, have I realized how hard that must have been for her. She had wanted to reach the top too. She had wanted to stand in the clouds and feel the majesty of God surrounding her, but had been unable to, not because her will was not strong enough, but because her physical body was simply not capable of carrying her there. The mountaintop had been completely out of her reach. Sometimes, as women, we may feel like we are missing out on potential spiritual experiences because we are unable to climb the mountain. We find it hard to physically separate ourselves from the people, things, and circumstances of our lives. We have babies who need us every hour of the day, children who demand our attention, spouses who need an equal partner, aging parents who cannot be left alone, neighbors who are in need, and the responsibility of dozens of daily tasks necessary to sustain physical life. One of my favorite authors, Pearl S. Buck, wrote about the struggle her mother had between the desire to live a more spiritual life and the pressing reality of caring for physical needs. Buck's mother, named Carrie, and her husband Andrew were Christian missionaries in China during the last part of the 19th century. Buck wrote, "Andrew, laboring over their everlasting souls, would not have thought of lice and bedbugs. Carrie, engrossed in the necessity for cleanliness, saw Andrew praying with some refractory lad and paused to think remorsefully, 'How much better he is than I. How is it I forget so about souls?' But the next moment, her interest would be caught in the ordering of rice and vegetables, or there would be a little boy who looked pale and she must coax him to drink a little milk, or there would be an itch on another's hands and she must run for the sulfur mixture. Souls were more important, that one she believed heartily, but bodies were somehow so immediate. For women, all the physical work required to create bodies and keep them alive is often so immediate. It is hard, and sometimes even impossible, for a woman to separate herself from the pressing demands of physical bodies long enough to reach the spiritual realm, where quiet, contemplative communion with God is often found. This is why God often comes down off the mountain to be with women where they are. He meets us in our kitchens, in our cars, in the street, in our daily work. He sees the burdens we carry and knows the desires of our hearts to be with Him. And when we can't go to Him, He comes to us.